Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyama devaha Bhadram pashye makshabhirya chatraha Sthirairangeis tushtuvagum sastanubihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, O gods, may we hear with our ears what is auspicious. O ye adorable ones, may we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we sing praises to ye and enjoy with a strong body and limbs the life allotted to us by the gods. Om, peace, peace, peace. The Jews who were gathered there around him, saying, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly." Jesus answered, "I did tell you, but you do not believe. The works I do in my Father's name testify about me. But you do not believe because you are not my sheep. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hands. I and my Father are one." Again, the Jewish opponents picked up stones to stone him. But Jesus said to them, "I have shown you many good works from the Father. For which of these do you stone me?" "We are not stoning you for any good work," they replied, "but for blasphemy, because you, a mere man, claim to be God. Do not believe me unless I do the works of my Father then. But if I do them, even though you do not believe me, believe the works, that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I in my Father." John 10. Good morning, everyone. Merry Christmas to all. Thank you for coming on the 25th. It's a family day. Let us contemplate on, again, continuing yesterday's topic, Jesus Christ's message of love. Today we'll continue with one of the ultimate realizations. The statement, "I and my Father are one." If not, it is the ultimate. It is maybe for us, as it was for many of these Jews, a blasphemy. He wasn't understood. So I'm going to try my best to let us all try to understand Jesus Christ's statement. I and my Father are one. For those who were here yesterday, did you get a chance to contemplate on Jesus Christ's message of love? Do you remember what it was? Was it the message? A command. And that's a key. That's a real key. And I want you to think about it towards the end of this talk today. We will reach a conclusion. It's a command. In his dialogue with a Parsi lawyer, Jesus said, You shall love the Lord, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind. You shall love your God with heart, soul, and mind. This is the great first commandment. And then the second, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. In John 13, we find a new commandment I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. And then he said, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. We open today reading from John 10. In the first half of John, we find Jesus explaining that he is a good shepherd who lays down his life for his sheep. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, he said, and they follow me. His sheep know his voice, and he knows his sheep. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. It's like a promise. He talks about willingly laying down his life for them. Something that we all know he did. It happened. He sacrificed his life in the cross. His sheep are the people who will believe in him and follow him. He gave his life so that we might live. In theological language, it is said that God is both transcendent over and immanent his world. Transcendent over and immanent in his world, the phenomena. The immanence of God means that he is knowable, perceivable, graspable. We find this parable this statement very palpable, a very palpable perception of God in world teachers like Jesus the Christ. And again, here we have another one, Ramakrishna. Also, Buddha. Their message is all about sacrifice and love for others. Sri Ramakrishna, for all those who are familiar, and for all those who are not familiar, talks about the big jnani. He describes the experience of a big jnani as someone who stays among us to guide us, to teach us, to show us the way. He gives his life. He sacrifices his own liberation for the sake of others. His life, his example, is nothing but love. We find in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, or the nectar of the words of Sri Ramakrishna, a big jnani isn't afraid of anything. He has realized both aspects of God, personal as well as impersonal. Come on in. He has talked with God. He has enjoyed the bliss of God. The big jnani always sees God. He sees God even with his very eyes. Why does a big jnani keep an attitude of love towards God? The answer is that I consciousness persists. It disappears in the state of samadhi, complete union with God. No doubt. But it keeps coming back. In the case of ordinary people, the I never disappears. Sorry about that. You may cut down an ashwatha tree. For those who are familiar with the ashwatha tree, it's a tree that we only see in India. But the next day, sprouts shoot up. The big jnani has attained the ultimate state of union with God, the state where you can say, I and my Father are one. Now, we find in Jesus Christ's message two types of teachings which are nothing but stages in the spiritual development depending on the way he was addressing his message and who he was addressing his message. We find he often taught in parables. To the masses who could not conceive anything higher than a personal God, he said, pray to your Father in heaven. To others who could grasp a higher idea, he said, I am the vine, ye are the branches. But to his disciples, to whom he revealed himself more fully, he proclaimed the highest truth. I and my Father are one. Due to different levels of spiritual understanding among people and cultures, we find in the New Testament Jesus taking different attitudes towards God. His favorite metaphor, the Father. There is a gradation, from a clearly dualistic stance to a full identification with the Lord. In John, he says repeatedly, I do nothing on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Or whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise. Or I always do what is pleasing to him, and I speak as the Father instructed me. So you can see this dualistic kind of attitude he has towards God. Most of the time, that is how he is introduced to us. With his relationship with God, with this personal God. For those who have read Sri Ramakrishna, our teacher here, you might have noticed by now that he takes exactly the same attitude towards his mother. It is thou, mother, who dost everything. I am the machine, and thou art the operator. Sometimes he addresses God as he. I am the machine, and God is the operator. I am the house, and he is the indweller. I am the engine, and he is the engineer. I am the chariot, and he is the charioteer. I move as he moves me. I do as he makes me do. See the similarity. In Matthew, we find Jesus saying, All things have been handed over to me by my Father. And no one knows the Son except the Father. And no one knows the Father except the Son. Again, in the nectar of the words of Sri Ramakrishna, we also find the attitude that devotee Hanuman had towards his Rama. Rama, his Lord, his God. In the beginning, an extreme devotional attitude is expressed. Hanuman had the attitude of a servant. He said to Rama, "Oh Rama, sometimes I meditate on you as the whole and on myself as a part. Sometimes I feel that you are the master and I am the servant. But when I have the knowledge of reality, I see that I am you and you are I. In the state of perfect knowledge, one may feel, I am he, but that is far beyond the ordinary man's experience," says Ramakrishna. Are you following? Does it start making some sense? Hanuman, after realizing God in both his personal and his impersonal aspect, cherished toward God the attitude of a servant, a devotee. "O Rama, sometimes I think that you are the whole and I am part of you. Sometimes I think that you are the master and I am your servant. And sometimes, Rama, when I contemplate the Absolute, I see that I am you and you are I." This attitude is exactly what we find in the Gospel of John. I and my Father. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. And finally, the Father and I are one. In Vedanta, we take Jesus' declaration as something very natural and real. It was indeed real to him. Jesus spoke a direct truth and shocked his listeners. No doubt he was a master of bold statements. His boldest possibly is John 30. I and my Father are one. Can you see now from where he was talking? He couldn't say anything else. He was fully, deeply identified with what we call God. He could not separate himself from him. He was real. And the only thing he could do, just to express love. People in the crowd immediately picked up some stones with the intention of stoning Jesus to death. I've shown you many good works from the Father, for which of these do you stone me? We are not stoning you for any good work, they replied, for blasphemy, because you, a mere man, claim to be God. I always felt for Jesus. he wasn't understood. We didn't get it then. In his lecture, Buddhistic India, Swami Vivekananda says the following. We find this lecture in the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. Vedantism teaches that there is but one existence and one thing real. One existence and one thing real, and that is God. It is beyond all time and space and causation and everything. We can never define him. We can never say what he is, except that he is absolute existence, absolute knowledge, absolute blissfulness. He is the only reality. Of everything, he is the reality of you and me, of the world, and of everything everywhere. It is his knowledge upon which all our knowledge depends. It is his blissfulness upon which depends our pleasure. And he is the only reality. And when man realizes this, he knows that I am the only reality because I am he. What is real in me is he also. And then he says, so that when a man is perfectly pure and good and beyond all grossness, he finds, as Jesus found, I and my Father are one. The Vedantist has patience to wait for everybody. Wherever you are, this is the highest. I and my Father are one. Realize it. If an image helps you, images be welcome. If worshiping a great man helps you, worship him. Only be sincere. And if you are sincere, says Vedantism, you are sure to be brought to the goal. None will be left. Your heart, which contains all truth, will unfold itself chapter after chapter until you know the last truth, that I and my Father are one. And what is salvation? To live in God. Where? Anywhere. Here. This moment. Vivekananda. Again, in his lecture, The Essence of Religion, we find Vivekananda saying, when a man has reached that perfect state, he is of the same nature as the personal God. He is of the same nature as the personal God. I and my Father are one. He knows himself one with Brahman, the Absolute, and projects himself as does the personal God. When we approach him with the five senses, we can only see him as the personal God. The idea is that the self, capital Self, cannot be objectified. How can the knower know himself? Pure Vedanta. Can you take this? How can the knower know himself? But he can cast a shadow, as it were, and the highest form of that shadow, that attempt of objectivity, objectifying oneself is the personal God. The self is the eternal subject, capital Self. And we are eternally struggling to objectify that self. And the highest objectification of the self possible to us is the idea of the personal God. Do you see it? It's our idea, but it helps and it works. It worked for Jesus. It worked for Ramakrishna. It has to work for us. So again, let's talk about my favorite topic, the personal God. I always try to dodge it, but inevitably, here we are again. Personal God. We find in Sri Ramakrishna's message that the way is to relate or have a relationship, a very intimate relationship with our idea of God. That is how we connect with that principle. That is how we connect with the meaning behind God. We have to develop an attitude, a very special attitude towards our most precious thing. Kind of like the Lord of the Ring kind of a statement. Our most precious thing, our God. Our all in all. We meditate, we contemplate, we commune with our God daily. How do we do that? Through? You should be familiar with this. Prayers, meditation, very good. Karma yoga, meditation. Now, meditation does not strictly mean that we have to sit cross-legged all day. There is something called active meditation that we can practice in what I called our field of yoga, our daily life. Whatever we are called to do. Our field of yoga is nothing else but our daily life. And meditation is done in two different ways. We can meditate on the personal God, our idea of God, with name and form, as he or she. But as different from ourselves. When we worship Jesus or Krishna, we see them different from us. They are outside. We honor, we worship, we engage in this worship. It could be a picture or any symbol that reminds that of that capital. When we meditate outside, we always take God as though outside. When we perform rituals in an altar, we offer flowers, incense, and light. And this is, of course, depending on our cultural background. Nobody worships an idol, a statue, or simply a stone. We honor and worship its meaning. If any form that we recognize as personal God, in any form, we can invoke that relationship. It is purely an invocation. We can invoke him physically, means through rituals, worship. This involves our body, our mind, our voice, organ of speech. We see that sometimes among us in our centers. For those of you who are familiar with our culture, we do pujas. We honor the presence of God externally. We can also invoke Him orally through prayer, which is common in all religions. We involve our mind and our organ of speech. The same invocation can be mental, involving the mind alone. It's mental activity where the object of our invocation or the object of our meditation is what we call in Sanskrit the Saguna Brahman, Ishvara, or God. We create a bond with Ishvara, with our idea of God, by becoming devotees through this invocation. Our invocation itself turns us into devotees. While doing these prayers, we are producing an unseen result in our lives, a magic that happens, that will slowly transform our personality, that will slowly transform our characters, that will slowly turn us into divine beings, being able to express that divinity already in us. That magic is called grace. We need to establish that loving and bonding relationship with our personal God. But, as most of you know by now, the Vedantic teaching tells us that the Lord is not different from us. Oops. And this sometimes can get a little confusing. And so, there is a different kind of invocation. But in order to practice this kind of meditation, we require some training, my friends. It's not that easy. A special mindset. That, of course, in our daily life, as busy as we are, it's a bit difficult. There is another way of meditation where we invoke in ourselves. We invoke that God in ourselves. This is a higher state of meditation and requires a higher training and mastery, of course. Eventually, by God's grace, by our own grace, we might get there. But baby steps. This is when we see I and the Lord to be one and the same. What happened to Hanuman? There is again a difference between doing this kind of meditation as an imagination, meaning I imagine I am that already, and the realization, I am that, I am He already. Realization means it's my reality, Jesus the Christ. I and my Father are one. In one, there is no inquiry. In one, there is no understanding. It's mere imagination. Difficult, dangerous. before us is our ego. So we gotta watch out. Something like imagining a stone to be God and worship it, but in this case, I imagine myself to be that principle. I am one with that. Eventually, through one path or the other, we discover that I am God is not an invocation, is not imagination, but is a statement of fact. It is. We hope to get there. Why not? This is where we realize the ultimate goal in Vedanta, the worship of the Spirit through the Spirit. Our identity with our God. I and my Father are one. Until then, we need to be smart and follow the teachings and the path of our world teachers. We need to work with ourselves. We are so identified with all our ideas, all the labels we have put upon ourselves. I'm weak, I'm this, I'm that, I can't. We have to find the strength within us. And first thing first, we have to create a relationship with God. There, we will get the strength that we need. Jesus and Ramakrishna, in their lives, they showed the easiest way to commune with God. And it is through a relationship with our Heavenly Father or Mother. We have to establish a bonding relationship with the idea of God. Once that bonding with God is established, then only we can relax a little bit. We learn to live in God. We learn to live through God and work for God. We lead a life centered in God until we realize the truth, that truth within us. Are you following? Vivekananda says, it was that I and my Father are one. It was that prayer, Father, just as I am one with you, so make them all one with me. That is the worship of the impersonal God. Be one with the universe, be one with Him. And this impersonal God requires no demonstrations, no proof. He is nearer to us than even our senses, nearer to us than even our senses, nearer to us than our own thoughts. It is in and through Him that we see and think. To see anything, I must first see Him. This is a hint of what you can practice in your daily life. To see anything, I must first see Him. To see this wall, I first see Him, and then the wall. For He is the eternal subject. Who is seeing whom? He is here, in the heart of our hearts. Bodies and minds change. Misery, happiness, good and evil come and go. Days and years roll on. Life comes and goes, but He dies not. The same voice, I am, is eternal, unchangeable. So we find in John 8, are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and so did the prophets. Who do you think you are? Jesus replied, if I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Though you do not know him, I know him. If I say I did not, I would be a liar, just like you. But I do not know him. But I do know him, and I obey his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. You are not yet 50 years old, they said to him, and you have seen Abraham. Very truly I tell you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. At this, they picked up some stones to stone him. But Jesus himself hid himself away from the temple grounds. Vivekananda continues, in him and through him we know everything. In him and through him we see everything. In him and through him we sense, we think, we live, and we are. And that I, which we mistake to be a little I, limited, is not only my I, but yours, the I of everyone, of animals, angels, of the lowest of the low. That I am is the same in the murderer as in the saint, the same in the rich as in the poor, the same in man as in woman, the same in man as in animals. If I ask you, who are you? Each and every one of you will have to answer, I am first. From the lowest amoeba to the highest angel, he resides in every soul and eternally declares, I am he, I am he. When we have understood that voice eternally present there, when we have learned this lesson, the whole universe will have expressed its secret. Nature will have given up her secret to us. Nothing more remains to be known. Thus we find the truth, for which all religions search, that all this knowledge of material sciences is but secondary. That is the only true knowledge which makes us one with the universal God of the entire universe. I and my Father are one. 6 words to denote the ultimate Vedantic teaching. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. We find in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Again, to the masses who could not conceive of anything higher than a personal God, Jesus said, pray to your Father in heaven. Does it make sense now? What is Jesus Christ's command? First and foremost, love your God. That's the very first thing we need to do. Fall in love with God at any cost, no matter what. You do what you have to do. He or she is real. There is a reality behind all this. That invisible hand who can see the whole picture, who is ruling over all these laws in the universe. There is a prayer in John 17. Jesus is praying for us. I do not ask for this only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you. What is the main Vedantic teaching? The one without a second Brahman. I do not ask for this only, but for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one even as we are one. I in them, and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me. Bible. Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, may be with me where I am, to see my glory that you have given me because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, even though the world does not know me, even though the world does not know you, I know you. And these know that you have sent me. I made known to them your name, and I will continue to make it known, that the love with which you have loved me may be in them, and I in them. John 17. His promise. Before long, the world will not see me anymore, but you will see me, because I live. You also will live. On that day, you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commandments, whoever has my commands and keeps them, is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them. Do you see this language? This one thread in this dualistic language is nothing but the Vedantic truth. Jesus said to them, I have shown you many good works from the Father. What do you think? Has he done the good works? Any world teacher will show us the way. Any world teacher will sacrifice his life to share his message, to share us the way. Love is a command. You shall love the Lord, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples. Only if you love one another. Thank you. What do you think? Is it clear? Do you have any comments? What is our most important duty as human beings? All of a sudden, I have turned Christian. I was born Christian, Catholic, but I love this language. Just fall in love with God. Just do and follow His command. He's real. Then He will take care of the rest. You will experience peace. Your life will carry meaning. Your life will make sense. Only if you follow the one commandment. If you love God, you will be forced to express love in your life. To love one another. It will flow from you. That single command we cannot forget. Exactly the same teaching we find in these world teachers and other teachers. Get hold of God. Get hold of the idea of God. Whatever it takes, it doesn't matter. Whatever name, whatever shape, whatever form. Commune with the meaning and lead a good life. That's enough. Eventually we'll get there. Eventually that understanding will come to us. Does it make sense now to you? His statement, I and my Father are one. He was simply misunderstood. It wasn't his fault. He couldn't help it.
As it is today.
Once you get there, you won't be able to help that. Will you continue being identified as Alex anymore? You will be one with him, just as he was. That's the reality. And we are all heading there. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, that outer world is Purna, full of divine consciousness. This inner world is also Purna, full of divine consciousness. From Purna comes Purna. From the fullness of divine consciousness, the world is manifested. Taking Purna from Purna, Purna indeed remains, because divine consciousness is non-dual and infinite. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you.